Some people talk about God as if they had circled around a giant being snapping photos from every angle. They know all about God. They can tell you what God thinks, what God likes, what God does and doesn't do. In short, every last thing about God. When someone tells me that he or she is an atheist, I frequently ask them to tell me about the God they don't believe in. Invariably, I can respond in all honesty, neither do I believe in that God. I totally agree with you. Let me be clear. I respect the atheist position. I often find that genuine atheism is born of rigorous intellectual honesty. I also know that atheism doesn't mean that one has no spiritual life. But I'm not pitching this to atheists, nor to theists for that matter. I'm interested in probing some of the rumors about God, regardless of what we happen to believe about God. I want to suggest a few things that might help you on your journey towards wholeness. And it doesn't matter a whit what you call this unity from which everything in the universe proceeds, the underlying foundation of all that is, seen and unseen. Call it consciousness, call it nature, or give it a name like Allah, or Shiva, or Brahma. There's a rumor that God is remote. More than likely that comes out of the experience of the young human species being conscious of the spaciousness of the sky, imagining that the force responsible for sun, moon, and stars must be even more remote than the visible heavenly bodies. So God gets identified with sky and heaven and is assumed to be far above earthly life. There's a rumor that God has a definite plan for how each person is to live, down to the details of every individual life. There's a rumor that God gets very angry and annoyed with people, especially people who are different, who act in ways of which the majority in a time and culture disapprove. There's a rumor that God is particularly offended by human sexuality, especially if sex is used for any purpose other than procreation. There is a rumor that if something is prospering, God must be blessing it, or him, or her, or them. And if something or someone is beset with problems or misfortunes, God must be expressing strong disapproval of that thing or those people. There is a rumor that the whole point of God is tied to an afterlife. So the point of present life is to do whatever is necessary to secure life after death. God is rumored to be in charge of the process of admitting or refusing to admit persons to heaven, called by whatever name. Does any of this sound familiar? What about the rumor that God is male? What about the rumor that God is only interested in happy things, never tragedies, destruction, calamities, or any of the misfortunes that befall human beings on this planet? There's also a rumor that all these things, these terrible things, express the will of God. That's a pretty awful rumor, but it's rife. Okay, enough about rumors. As you can tell, there is no end of rumors about God. How do we sort out rumor from truth? Let's start with low-hanging fruit. It's this. If you're concerned about an afterlife, whatever may be your frame of reference, karma, reincarnation, resurrection, heaven and hell, transmigration of souls, I encourage you to make a short list of things you never need to worry about and put first on it what's going to happen to you when you die. Because you can look the world over and you won't find a religious tradition that talks about afterlife as being anything other than either something that happens naturally or a life that's based upon what you do in this life. Further, all those traditions will tell you that a life of charity, kindness, generosity, goodness, and mercy is how you need to live in order to qualify for an afterlife. So get to work living like that, and the afterlife, if there is one, will take care of itself. Whether or not you believe in an afterlife is quite beside the point. The world will be better off for your having lived a loving life. I don't think there's any debate about that. About 100 years ago, a German scholar by the name of Rudolf Otto wrote a little book that is still in print, probably one of the most important theological books written in the 20th century. It was called Das Heilige, or in English, the Idea of the Holy. Otto's argument was that the core of religious experience was an encounter with the holy. He termed it the numinous and suggested that the experience of the holy is mysterium tremendum et fascinans, an awe-inspiring, even shattering experience that captivates, intrigues, and perhaps overwhelms us. We can immediately see how when we frame the idea of the holy that way, we're dealing with something that could be produced in nature, or might be something that, at least on the surface, seems to be wholly other than a natural occurrence or event. We can also see that such a tremendous experience could be both frightening and reassuring. We might see that the experience that Otto is pointing to is one that's not easily reduced to facile categories that we use to construct our moral order. We're only a few days away from Halloween, the season of scary and spooky things. Halloween, like many others of our festival, has its roots in ancient ritual that focused quite seriously on life and especially death. It comes at a time in the northern hemisphere when darkness is gathering and daylight is disappearing. All those little monsters that will ring your doorbell wanting candy and other treats are having fun, not experiencing dread. They might not be conscious of it, but they are a part of an effort to poke fun at the idea of monsters and ghouls and ghosts and phantoms. May I remind you that there is plenty to be scared about in the life of ours, including the lives of those little boys and girls. Mass shootings coming from out of nowhere are a ready example. But it isn't that actual dread that Halloween burlesques and lampoons. Oh no. Quite the opposite. It's a form of entertainment that we collectively use to take our minds off the life-shattering, dreadful, awful things that frighten us to death and are beyond our control. The things that terrify us are the true monsters. The classic monster is a being, a plant, or an animal that's abnormal in structure and behavior, terrifying in shape or appearance, unusually large, unnaturally ugly, and usually horribly wicked. Take all those things as actual or imagined descriptors of events or beings, people people that devastate peace and send us running for our lives. Monsters, in that sense, are real. Phantoms are not the same as monsters. They are unusual and usually suggest something that has no physical substance. A ghost, real or imagined, is an example of a phantom. A phantom might be seen, but it has no physical appearance, any physical substance. It might be benign, but a phantom might produce dread or abhorrence. Gods and goddesses, if we identify them with the experience of the holy, are neither monsters nor phantoms. But they and their names refer to experiences that are spiritual. Whether Cernunnos, a nature spirit envisioned as a forest god, or Dionysus, an ancient embodiment of wild revelry and even debauchery, or Isis and Osiris, the ancient Egyptian deities, or Vishnu, Krishna, or one of the other Hindu deities, or the god of the three major monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they don't fit into the category of the human. Even in the many stories we have from all over the world about divinities assuming human shapes or becoming incarnate as humans, they transcend the category of ordinary humanity, don't they? The big hang-up in the West has now been for several hundred years whether we can rationally believe in divinity, in God. Indeed, Otto was prompted to investigate the idea of the holy in large part to answer the academic and philosophical critiques of religion that he considered to miss the point of it entirely. But chances are you're not interested in debating the idea of the holy. You quite likely have experienced it, one or more, or even many times. Awe has overcome you on a beach or on a mountaintop. Mystery has wrapped itself around you in a relationship. You have experienced a strange and mysterious comfort in tragic circumstances, or strength to meet challenges you knew didn't come solely out of your own being. You may be one of the legions of men and women who discover that there is more to the joy of sex than a book title. Your own body is the source of dazzling and breathtaking pleasure. Your God is whatever you are giving your life to. Your God is whatever inspires, moves, delights you. In that sense, your God might not be related at all to the mysterium tremendum. Only you know whether your life is touched by the numinous. Does your God that you're serving with your energy and heart give you life, affirm you, comfort and console you? Or does your God suck you dry, leave you feeling desolate, incomplete, unsatisfied? Maybe your God is just too small. You know, in a world that's often ruled by the monstrous and the frightening, the holy itself can seem threatening. Maybe you found or will find that what at first seems to be threatening or perhaps useless will be the very thing that offers you the best shot at fully being the wonderful creature you were created to be. The paradox of the holy, far from being remote and unapproachable, is nearer to us than the air we breathe and adores us beyond anything we can imagine. Thanks so much for listening. I'll talk to you again next month.